This is a worm. And this is also a worm. One lives quietly on land, the other lurks in the ocean. On land, the most terrifying fate for a worm is probably drying out on the sidewalk, waiting helplessly for a bird to swoop down and snatch it. But in the oceans, worms flip the script. They are not the prey, they are the predators. They bite. They hunt. They can grow over 10 feet long, and they thrive in environments where gravity and buoyancy allow them to become monsters. Despite all being classified as true worms, their lives couldn't be more different. So why is it that only aquatic worms evolve into these nightmares? What are they defending themselves against in the ocean that land worms never have to face? Let's start with the bobbit worm. Its scientific name is Unisafro ditois, and it is, for all intents and purposes, a living bear trap. These worms can reach 10 feet in length, but you'll almost never see their full body. That's because 95% of them remains buried underground, with only 5 antennae poking out like motion sensors. When prey, like an unsuspecting fish, brushes against those sensors, the strike is instant. The fish is seized, dragged underground, and devoured. Bobbit worms don't see their prey. They have no eyes, only light-sensitive organs. They don't need to see. They bite first and ask questions never. Sometimes they succeed in swallowing their prey whole, even poisonous ones like pufferfish. Other times, they just rip off a huge chunk. Their jaws are so strong they could easily slice a human finger, though thankfully, we're far too large to be dragged into their burrows. Still, the bite leaves a painful, venomous sting. What's truly terrifying is their mastery of concealment. There are stories of bobbit worms being discovered hiding for years inside aquarium rocks, silently picking off expensive fish, one by one. The horrified owner finally spots the monster retreating back into the gravel, long after the damage is done. So, why do bobbit worms become ruthless predators, while earthworms remain humble decomposers? Well, on land, earthworms have a pretty good gig. They thrive by eating decaying leaves and organic matter in the soil. Their survival strategy is safety in numbers and staying out of sight. They don't have to fight lions or bears for food. They just recycle what's already there. But coral reefs are brutal. They are crowded, competitive, and filled with armored predators hunting for their next meal. To survive here, a soft-bodied worm has to become a weapon. A single fish provides far more nutrition than a mouthful of soil ever could. So over time, worms in the ocean evolve jaws, speed, and violence. Physics also plays a huge role. On land, gravity limits size. Imagine a 10-foot-long earthworm. It would just collapse under its own weight, a floppy noodle unable to move. But in water, buoyancy supports massive bodies. This allows worms to grow huge muscles, armor, and powerful jaws without collapsing. The ocean essentially removes the limits on size, paving the way for monsters. But not all ocean worms rely on brute strength. Some evolved a more subtle, but equally deadly, strategy. Chemical warfare. Meet the bearded fireworm. It's brightly colored, looks fluffy, and almost seems inviting to touch. But don't. Its beautiful white bristles are actually hollow needles filled with a potent neurotoxin. A single brush with one snaps them off, embedding them into skin and releasing venom that feels like, well, fire. The pain is instant, often accompanied by nausea and dizziness. Fireworms survive not by hiding, but by advertising. Their vivid coloration screams danger to any would-be predator. They are slow soft, and would be an easy meal except for the agonizing consequences of trying to eat one. Without their venom, they would have vanished long ago. Now, if sheer size is what impresses you, then meet the ribbon worm. This is, officially, the longest animal ever recorded on Earth. One specimen was estimated to be 180 feet long. That's half the length of a football field of worm. But unlike a giant snake, ribbon worms are incredibly fragile and gooey. They hunt using a proboscis, a muscular tube-like organ they eject from the head. It acts like a sticky, sometimes acidic, net to entangle their prey. Their extreme length isn't about intimidation, it's about breathing. Ribbon worms absorb oxygen directly through their skin. By stretching their bodies into these impossibly long, thin ribbons, they maximize their surface area, effectively turning their entire body into one giant lung. This allows them to be everywhere at once, spreading across the seafloor like tripwires, while their vital organs remain safely hidden in crevices. And despite their massive size, predators tend to leave them alone. Their bodies are coated in a foul-smelling mucus that apparently tastes like death. Next, we descend to one of the most extreme environments on the planet: hydrothermal vents. These are basically underwater volcanoes, spewing superheated, toxic chemicals. And here, you'll find the giant tube worm. They tower up to 8 feet tall, looking like alien lipstick tubes growing from the seafloor. They have no eyes, no mouth, no stomach, and no exit. They are essentially hollow frameworks, kept alive by a remarkable partnership. Inside their bodies, a special organ called the trophosome houses billions of symbiotic bacteria. These microbes consume the toxic hydrogen sulfide gushing from the vents, and through a process called chemosynthesis, convert it into sugar. This sugar is the food that feeds the worm. Tube worms are the fastest growing marine invertebrates known, shooting up 3 feet in a single year. Yet, they are completely harmless, unaware, and brainless. They are living scaffolds for bacteria, stripped down to the most minimum version of animal life. And finally, we come to the most grotesque of all: a zombie worm. Its scientific name is Ozydax, which means bone devourer. When a whale dies and its massive carcass sinks to the deep ocean floor, a succession of scavengers arrives. First, sharks and hagfish strip the flesh. Then, the zombie worms arrive. They don't eat meat. They dissolve bone. Like tube worms, they have no mouths or stomachs. Instead, they grow root-like structures that burrow deep into the whale's skeleton. These roots secrete acid that dissolves the bone, releasing the fats and oils trapped inside. Symbiotic bacteria living within the worm then digest these nutrients, feeding their host. Their reproduction is equally bizarre. The zombie worms you see are all females. The males are microscopic and live inside the female S-tube, sometimes 50 to 100 of them at once. Their only job is to fertilize her eggs until they die. The larvae then drift endlessly in the ocean currents, and most of them are doomed to starve. Only the tiniest fraction will ever be lucky enough to land on a new whale skeleton, where they can live out their strange, dark existence. So, there you have it. On land, worms are humble, helpful recyclers, but in the ocean, they become predators, poisoners, giants, and bony. The water frees them from gravity, forces them into brutal competition, and transforms them into the stuff of nightmares. Earthworms might be a little gross, but compared to the horrors of the deep, they're practically gentle companions. The ocean, it seems, has a special way of turning worms into monsters. Thanks for watching.